Salutations readers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nkechi, and for today we're going to talk about my 2025 Self Destruct TBR. Now, before though I get to those books for this TBR, I do want to make a quick mention as far as the books that I still have in my current 2024 Self Destruct TBR, because there is still a few books left on that TBR, and since we still have about a little bit more than a month left of the year, I still have some time to finish reading these 4 books, but I do want to make mention of those 4 books before we get to the main TBR. First up, I still have not read The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. This was a soft DNF from a couple years ago. I still think that I'll be able to read this book before the end of the year, because I think I am finally in the mood to actually read this book, at least hopefully, because I really do not want to end up unhauling it by the end of the year. Same thing with She Would Be King by Way Two More. This one again was another soft DNF, and unfortunately I'm not able to access the audiobook, but I do want to get through this book before the end of the year as well, but we shall see. Next up, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I actually recently just got the audiobook from my library, so I do see myself getting to this book actually sooner than later, so that's really good. And then last but not least, we have Pierre Nessie by Suzanne Clark, another book that also I do not have access for the audiobook of, but one though that I'm still interested in reading soon than later. So as far as these 4 remaining books here, these are just the books that I'm still interested in reading, while the other 8 books that I had in my TBR I already unhauled. I didn't even read them. I might have tried to read them and then just end up just unhauling them regardless. So because of that, I have decided that in case I don't end up reading these books by the end of the year, like December 31st, 2024, I am giving myself an extended 3-month deadline of March 31st, 2025 to read them, or else I'm gonna have to straight up unhaul them. And because of that, I won't be surprised if I end up just unhauling them straight up, but I just want to let y'all know about that. But anyways, that's pretty much it. That's just a quick preamble of my current self-destruct TBR. Now let's actually get to the books that actually will destruct in about a year time. Now this time around, I've decided to make the TBR smaller than it was last year. Last year was 12 books. This year I'm making it 6 books because I don't want to have so many books on the TBR that I feel intimidated by not reading them, but also I don't want to have so little of a TBR that I feel like it's not much of an actual challenge. So I figured 6 books, and these 6 books in particular, would be more interesting for me to at least try to read before the end of next year. And yeah, half of them are books that I soft DNF'd or just straight up DNF'd, and the other half are books that I have not tried to read at all. So we shall see how that goes. First up, I have The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I do have this for this TBR because, well, one, I did end up soft DNFing. I actually can't remember how long ago now, but I've had it on my shelf for sure over a year, maybe not even 2 years actually. And I also do know that it does have a companionable sequel, Those Beyond the Wall, already out. And while I've heard mixed things about that book, I still have heard amazing things about The Space Between Worlds, and I'm still curious to try Micaiah Johnson's writing again because I did enjoy it for the first time, so I want to give this another shot. So I'm gonna give myself until the end of 2025 to see if I end up actually really reading this. If not, it's just got to go. Okay, I've DNF'd it. I have come back to it, so I gotta hurry it up basically. Next up, Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. This is a literary horror, and I did try to read this one last year. I did soft DNF because I was not in the mood for horror at the time, but I haven't come back to it since. So I'm giving myself to the end of 2025 to read it, especially since this author does have a sophomore novel coming out next year that I do want to read, but I still own and haven't finished reading their debut novel. So in my mind, I'm like, what's the point of me trying to go after their sophomore novel when I haven't even finished reading their debut novel first? So that's where really my idea of like doing a deadline for this one comes in, because I'm just like, well, we got to get to it eventually. If not, then why is it still on the shelf? You know what I mean? So yeah, I do plan and very much hope to read Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. Next, I do have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I've had this book for my TBR for a while as well. I did DNF it. At the time, it was a little bit hard DNF, and now though I'm like, maybe I should try this book again, especially since V.E. Schwab does have another book coming out next year, and I'm not interested in anything else by V.E. Schwab to try before I read that other book, so I want to come back to this one since it's the only one I'm really that interested in. Yes, it does have that pesky sticker. Unfortunately, if I try to peel it off, it doesn't peel off royal, so it's gonna stay there. So yeah, this was a book that I initially hard to DNF that I'm trying to see if I can get back into it. So I won't be surprised if I end up just unhauling it straight up, but I do want to at least give this book another shot. And V. Schwab's writing as well another shot. So we shall see, though, how that all ends up for me. Next up, I have The Dawn Hounds by Sasha Stronach. I'm not totally sure on how I pronounce the author's name. This is a first book in a series. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. It's a queer sci-fi fantasy kind of book. It's pretty much I think it's compared for fans of like Rebecca Roanhorse and Tamsin Muir. I'm not totally sure why I put it in this particular TBR, but I don't know. I just feel like for a book that I've had on my shelf for sure over a year now, I think we're going on to 2 years since I've owned this on my physical TBR, but I do want to at least just give this book a shot. I don't want to just sit in my shelf collecting dust. So we're putting on the TBR. I'm hoping to read this sooner than later. I don't know if I'll be able to get an audiobook, but also I am just curious to read a book written by a queer Maori author. So I just want to give this one a shot. Let's see how it goes for me. Next up, I have The Parisian by Isabella Hamad. This is her debut novel. This is a lit-fic historical fiction following a wealthy son of a textile merchant from Palestine, but this is during like the Ottoman Empire, I think, and it seems like he's traveling around the world traveling in France during World War I, something like that. Oh no, okay, I see. So at the time that the main character was born and raised, it was Palestine under the Ottoman Empire, and then he finds out that it was under British rule, and it's pretty much running all of that, and he was living in like France or something, so hence called The Parisian. Is during World War I. So it is a thick book. It's a thick one, and I do own the author's sophomore novel, Enter Ghosts, but I decided to put this book on the TBR because I don't really read a lot of literary historical fiction novels, and especially not really ones that I own in my TBR. So if I end up putting it on the TBR, I need to see if this is actually a book that's really worth still having on my physical shelf, because I don't want this book to be collecting dust. Like, I know I'm not an avid literary historical fiction reader, but when I do read a really good one, though, it sticks to me. It really does stick to me when it hits me. So I do want to give this book a shot. I do think there is an audiobook for this one, so I will check out an audiobook for sure. But yeah, I do want to just give this one a shot. I heard good things about Isabella Hamad's writing, and I'm very much curious about this particular version of Palestine as well that I'm not really used to seeing. Now, just about in the same vein as The Parisian, I do have Vagabonds by Hao Jianfang, translated by Ken Liu. This is a chunker of a sci-fi book, and it's also translated, like I said, by Ken Liu, which I've only read his short stories. So I'm very curious to actually read a book that he's translated, and especially with Vagabonds, because I have heard some pretty good things about Vagabonds. And I do own it. I mean, I think I bought this for my birthday this year. So I'm just like, okay, I bought it for my birthday, and I have yet to even attempt to read it. And I don't want this book to just be sitting on my shelf for like a good long minute. So yeah, it says here actually it's more like a literary, I think maybe like a literary philosophical kind of sci-fi. I don't know, I don't for sure it's sci-fi, but I think it's also literary fiction leaning. I don't know that'll make it easier to read because of how long it is or not. And I will see to check out the audiobook as well. I don't know how good the audiobook is, but regardless, I do want to at least give the book a shot because I don't want it just collecting dust. I mean, granted though, I don't want to necessarily unhaul it by the end of the year either, since I did buy it for my birthday this year. So ideally, I'll be able to read this book by the end of 2025. Anyways, these are the 6 books in my newest These Books Will Self-Destruct in 1 Year TBR. And yeah, I do hope to be able to get through these books, or at least to attempt to read these books in 2025, because I don't want it to be like, whereas this year where I barely attempted to read those other books, and I end up just unhauling them anyways. So for these books, though, I do genuinely want to actually, try to read them before I end up actually unhauling them. But we shall see, though. Only time can tell with these ones. But anyways, y'all, that is it. That's all I really have for y'all. Comment down below y'all's thoughts on any of these books, especially if any of y'all have read. Like, if any of y'all have read any of these 6 books, please let me know y'all's thoughts, especially with, like, The Invisible Life of Valley LaRue, The Space Between Worlds. I actually am very curious to see if anyone's actually have any thoughts about these bottom 3. So, Vagabonds, The Parisian, and The Dawn Hounds. I'm very curious about your thoughts on those 3 books in particular, if you have read them. If you're not really sure about the books I particularly put in this TBR, what would be some books that y'all would have put in a TBR like this? Like, are there any books that y'all would have put in, like, hey, if I don't read these books by the end of the year or a certain amount of time, I'm just gonna have to straight up unhaul them? I'm very curious to know about that. But if you don't have much else, that's okay. Like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to. And if you made it this far into the video, not really sure what to say, but want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here. I don't know, maybe leave some sort of space-related emoji for the space between worlds. It could be like a sky, it could be like a spaceship, an alien, a rocket, an astronaut. I don't know, something like that. In the comments down below if you made it this far. Anyways, thank you all again for coming on to my video, and I hope to see you on my next one. Bye.